Okay. So next we have Dr. Michael Klaper. Can you make him a co-host?
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Are you planning to share a PowerPoint slide?
Oh, are we ready to start?
No. Yeah, in a minute. Yeah.
Yes, I'm ready to share. Yes.
Okay, you're okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Of course.
And I think to cap it all off, your presentation is going to be perfect because you're going to be addressing the pharmaceutical industry and how we need to change medical education. Dr. Klaper, you are a hero of mine. I admire your work and the energy you bring and all the smiles you bring all the time. You are a warrior for our cause.
Well, it takes one to know one, and it's an honor to share this wonderful event. We need to keep the fire burning brightly, get this word out. Absolutely. So glad to be of help, of course.
Yeah, please take it away.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for the invitation to attend and participate in the most important message on the planet today, whether the rest of the planet knows it or not, that we cannot stop promulgating these important ideas that Climate Healer is trying to get out to the rest of the world. So I have been a physician for the last 50 years and a vegan physician for the past 40 years. And of course, being a passionate environmentalist, it all converges when it comes down to what we are eating. So let me share with you some science that I hope will make you feel even more committed and more positive about the plant-based message here. So let me share my screen here. Okay. And we will hide the video panel and the meeting controls. Great. Okay, so the name of our organization is Moving Medicine Forward. That is what we are trying to do and how it affects the health of our planets. And those should all be convergent by the time we get to the end of this presentation here. I have no conflicts of interest or disclosures to make. Been a physician for 50 years. Midway through my career, I was privileged to join the staff at True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California, about an hour north of San Francisco. And at True North, we have a steady stream of patients of the standard American style build and medical concerns with the standard American diseases. Most of them are overweight, if not clinically obese. We saw lots of clogged arteries showing up as high lipids, high LDLs, high blood pressure, the angina pectoris, rampant type 2 diabetes, and a host of inflammatory diseases involving every organ system from lungs to gut to joints to immune system. This is Western medicine in the 21st century. The standard treatment at most doctors' office is to raise the dose of beta blockers and insulin and whatever pharmaceuticals you're on and send the patient away for a month and hope they don't have their stroke when you're on call. This is the standard medical model these days, but nobody's getting to the root of the problem. At True North, we have these people come in, but instead of raising their dose of insulin and beta blockers, we put them on a diet based on whole plant foods. Every morning, there would be a big pot of fresh oatmeal with lots of colorful berries and slivered almonds and soy milk. Every lunch, every dinner, big colorful salads, hearty vegetable soups, big plates of steamed green and yellow vegetables, then a host of really filling entrees, lots of bean chilies and vegetable curries and thick soups and stews and no cheese burritos and no oil stir fries. We encourage people to eat all they want. These are whole plant foods. It's mostly fiber and water, truth be told, but it's really filling. it doesn't stick to you, and lots of colorful fruits for dessert. This was the food stream that disappeared down these people's throats, meal after meal, week after week. They would often stay 3-4 weeks or longer. And the changes we saw in these people were nothing short of spectacular. Now, within days, the obesity begins to melt away. It doesn't disappear overnight. These people lose about 2 pounds a day for the first couple of weeks, mostly fluid out of their tissues, but then it drops down to a half a pound or a pound of real weight loss a day. The arteries begin to relax and dilate. High blood pressures come down. It's an anti-inflammatory diet, so the joints stop hurting, the sinus infections clear up, the migraine headaches get better. With all the wonderful fiber in the fruits and the vegetables and the resistant starches and the beans and peas and lentils and chickpeas and asparagus type of fiber, these folks have their first good bowel movement in years, which improves their outlook on the entire universe. The folks with the psoriasis and eczema often notice their skin starts to clear day by day right in front of their eyes. The asthmatic folks stop wheezing so much, stop using their albuterol inhalers, they get better night's sleep, and we're able to reduce the medications, the hypertensive medications, the insulin, etc., eventually with the goal of stopping them altogether. And what we were witnessing, it took me a while to put these two words in the same sentence, but we were looking at disease reversal. Nobody mentioned this to me in medical school, that hypertension is a reversible disease, that type 2 diabetes is reversible, but they absolutely are. And when we talk about disease reversal, this is not California woo-woo stuff. We are talking about remission of clinical symptoms. The joints stop hurting, the lungs stop wheezing, the skin clears up, the patient's clinically better. But also their laboratory results get better. Their inflammatory markers normalize, their blood lipids normalize, their kidney function improves. So this one is what we're talking about when we talk about disease reversal, and we see it predictably. I have to laugh when I see the TV commercials for various weight loss programs, and the little fine print line says, "These results are not typical." Well, these results are typical. This is what happens. If this doesn't happen, we get concerned about what the patient is eating. But this is the most powerful therapeutic tool any medical student, any physician can ever wield. And we're trying to get the word out to these young doctors to start using plant-based nutrition as the keystone of their treatment programs. I'll be talking to you more about this towards the end of the talk. As I became a student over the years of how plant-based diets reverse chronic diseases, it's these 9 diseases that have the strongest validation. It's hard to open a medical journal these days of anything, pediatrics and infectious diseases, family practice, emergency medicine, internal medicine, general surgery, without seeing some article about how plant-based diet improves type 2 diabetes, plant-based diet reverses clogged arteries, plant-based diet reverses hypertension. And we don't have time, but normally at this point, I would go through a slide after slide of journal articles showing how plant-based diet improves or reverses each of these killer conditions. I invite you to do Google searches on any of them and say plant-based nutrition and plug in your favorite disease, and you'll see the growing literature substantiating the effectiveness of plant-based diets in reversing these diseases. The question, and one of my gifts to you in this talk, is why does it work? How does a plant-based diet reverse these chronic diseases? So you can, one, feel good and confident in yourself in following a plant-based diet. Then second, when you're talking with friends or family or even your family doctor, don't get into an argument with anybody, but you'll know in your heart there is solid science behind your choice to nourish your body on plant-based foods. Let's talk about why it works and how it works. Now, we want to talk about the natural diet of humans. So when I think about, well, what is a natural diet for a two-legged hominid? When I think about this, I bring up the memory of one of my teachers of natural eating that I encountered long ago, Professor Rwanda. And Professor Rwanda So like all mountain gorillas, spends the day up in the trees eating a steady stream of leaves and fruits and vegetation. And we have essentially the same digestive system these creatures do. They grow to magnificent size with rippling muscles. And guess what they don't do? They don't develop clogged arteries. They don't develop atherosclerosis. They don't develop type 2 diabetes. They don't develop ulcerative colitis. On a diet of whole plant foods. They're not 100% vegan. I'm sure the occasional grub and beetle and termite disappears down the gullet. But the majority of food materials these creatures eat are whole plant foods. And they pass these big soft stools a couple times a day. And again, do not develop the so-called diseases of civilizations that we do. So do we follow the example of these magnificent healthy creatures? Not so much. We have devolved our diet to one based on cooked animal flesh, laden with refined sugars and salts and oils and processing chemical and dairy products, and running this through the bloodstream meal after meal, day after day, week after week is the driving force behind most of our chronic diseases. And it's not a subtle process, not theoretical. You can see it with your naked eye and under the microscope. In your naked eye, if you have a standard American meal, bacon and eggs for breakfast, cheeseburger for lunch, chicken or pizza for dinner, for the next 5 hours, your blood is running thick with fat. It's called lipemia, means fat in the blood, and postprandial means after eating. So your blood is thick with fat for 5 hours after eating such a meal. And not everybody shows the fat this optically densely, but everybody has a wave of fat that goes through your bloodstream after you eat a meal like this. Where else is it going to go? And this 5 hours issue is a real thing. And during that 5 hours, your blood lipids are getting worse. Your LDL is going up. The blood is thicker. It's more viscous. The saturated fats stick to the red blood cells. They start sticking together. So the blood is thicker. And so it takes a higher pressure to force thick blood through tiny capillary beds. It's like forcing molasses through a soda straw. And so the high blood pressure goes up. All the substances we'll be talking about, the sugars and salts and fried oils and the fragments of animal protein, etc., damages the inner lining of the arteries, the endothelium. The fat sticks in the abdominal fat stores, increasing obesity, which increases inflammation. There's inflammatory reactions are fanned throughout the body, and insulin resistance go up, blood sugar rises. This is a result of keeping your blood fatty. You can see it in a blood tube, but under the microscope, keep your blood fatty meal after meal, week after week. The fat works its way into the muscle cells. It's called intramyocellular lipid. That word, intra is inside, myo is muscle, cell is cell, lipid is fat. It's fat in the muscle cell. This is what it looks like. This black stuff here does not belong here. This is fat in the muscle cell. And it blocks the insulin receptors from processing sugar in your diet. And so it causes insulin resistance. And if you search for intramyocellular lipid and insulin resistance, you'll find it's the driving force for that phenomenon. But there's more than just fat in this blood. The fat's the most clinically obvious. But these 18 families of molecular marauders that flood through the tissues, through the bloodstream, through every cell of the body after every meal for hours. I call it the postprandial, that means after eating, the postprandial red tide. And it's a fatty tide, it's a salty tide, it's a sugary tide, it's antigenic, so it's off the immune reaction. It's full of phosphates and sulfates that form phosphoric and sulfuric acid, so it's acid forming. It damages your genes. It's mutagenic. It sets off cancers. It's carcinogenic. It's atherogenic, sets off atherosclerotic plaques in the artery walls. It's pro-inflammatory and disrupts enzyme reactions throughout the body. And, excuse me, because hunger is not tolerated in our society, if you're home and you get it all munchy, you look in the fridge for last night's dinner. If you're out, you head for the convenience store or the restaurant. But we're constantly keeping ourselves in the postprandial state, month after month, year after year, and we pay quite a price for it. It's a high salt diet. There's salt in the meat, salt in the cheese, salt in the sausage, salt in the fries, salt in the chips. It's a high sodium diet. that stiffens our arteries and makes us retain fluid that raises blood pressure, which in turn sets us up for congestive heart failure and atherosclerotic vascular disease and myocardial infarctions and cerebral vascular accidents, strokes, and chronic kidney disease, kidney failure. So this is what a high salt diet week after week does. We consume way more sodium than we're supposed to. But also, we've recently found out that a high salt diet stimulates immune cells that open the door to autoimmune diseases like lupus. Who knew that high salt diets open the door to lupus? But as a recovering saltaholic, I've become very interested in entertaining my tongue with non-salty flavorings like lemon juice, and balsamic vinegars, and salt substitutes. But the high salt diet, it's in the restaurant food. It's in the spaghetti sauce at the Italian restaurant, in the soy sauce, the Asian restaurant. It's a high sodium diet that conspires against us. And then there's sugar. I'm not a pinch of sugar in your tea. I'm talking about eating sugar as a food. When you eat a vegan donut or vegan cupcake, candy bar, you're eating grams and grams of fructose, maltose, dextrose that flood throughout the body and stick to proteins all over the bodies. They glycosylate proteins. And these glycosylated proteins are then heated by your own body temperature to create what's called advanced glycation end products. These are the oxidized glycosylated sugars. And these products, the advanced glycation end products, don't worry about the name. Remember the acronym, AGE. They age you. They are teeming with free radicals that are missing in electrons. So they will rip electrons off any passing molecule, including your proteins, your cell membranes, your DNA. And it's one thing to run this reaction to oxidize these glycosylated sugars. That's what makes bread brown. But you don't want to run this reaction, the Maillard reaction, in the crystalline lens protein of your eye. It's a great way to open the door to cataracts. You don't want to run the Maillard reaction in the elastic fibers of your skin. It's a great way to turn your skin into an old suitcase. And you sure don't want to run the elastin fibers on the inner lining of the blood vessels of your brain. These are the membranes across which oxygen has to travel. And here's the problem. These are the brain arteries of two men who died at the same age. The man in the upper panel did not have Alzheimer's dementia. The man in the lower panel did have Alzheimer's. And if you stain for AGEs, you find the inner lining of their blood vessels are thick with these advanced glycation end products. Alzheimer's dementia does not fall out of a tree on you at age 60. This is 60, 70 years of running meat and dairy and oils and sugars and oxidizing substances through the arteries. There's a vascular component to Alzheimer's. It's not all there is, but it's one of the factors. We can't play victim to these dementia syndromes. Now, the salt and the sugar and saturated fats that cause so many problems, you can do this from vegan junk food. And just because you're vegan doesn't mean you're eating healthy. That's why we talk about whole food, plant-based. But once you add meat to the diet, and most Americans eat a piece of animal muscle 3 times a day. It's the bacon at breakfast, it's the beef burger for lunch, it's the chicken or fish for dinner, it's the dairy for dessert. It's an animal-based diet every few hours. And this is what such a meat-based diet style sends through the bloodstream, meal after meal. First of all, nobody eats raw meat. The very act of cooking the meat, of grilling the burger, broiling the steak, frying the chicken, oxidizes the cholesterol in the animal muscle. And it's the oxidized cholesterol that works its way into the walls of the artery that sets off atherogenic plaques. So I'll show you this in a minute. When you put the steak under the broiler or the burger on the grill, you're oxidizing the glycogen in the muscles, the nucleic acids in the DNA. That generates these reactive aldehydes that damage your genes. They're mutagenic. These are the genes that call forth the enzymes in your cells so you can do your cellular metabolism. Why damage your genes just because you're having lunch? Steaming broccoli does not create mutagenic aldehydes. Cooking oatmeal, boiling rice does not create mutagenic aldehydes. It's cooking meat at high temperatures that creates these more than anything else. New 5-GC is a sialic acid that only animals make, and our paleo friends and keto friends are giving themselves a shot, of New 5-GC 3 times a day, and it puts them in an inflammatory state. Endotoxin, nasty stuff from the bacteria in the animal's gut that spill onto the surface of the cutting tables in the slaughterhouse, and you have a film of these bacteria on every steak and chop and chicken breast that leaves the slaughterhouse. Well, the bacteria die and break up and release the stuff called endotoxin. Nasty stuff, endotoxin, makes your gut leaky, makes your blood clots, suppresses your heart function, and it's heat stable. Grilling the burger doesn't get rid of the endotoxin, so this nasty stuff that makes your gut leaky is in every burger. TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, drives cholesterol into the artery walls, and the meat eaters call forth bacteria in their gut that create TMAO. They're walking around with high levels of this. Broiling the steak, grilling the burger inevitably creates cancer-causing substances that smear on the stomach wall and give gastric cancers. Colon wall gives colon cancers. Heme iron makes red meat red and increases the risk of strokes and cancers. Don't have time to go into the mechanism. The AGEs are, as I mentioned, when you cook carbohydrates at high temperature, you generate them. But actually, cooking meat creates far more AGEs than cooking the carbohydrates. The cows and the dairy are all pregnant, so the dairy products have estrogens that drive breast lumps in women and fibroids and make prostate glands unstable in men. The more dairy a boy eats, the higher his risk of prostate cancer as a man. And the animals in the feedlots are fed bushels of grain sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. They're given hormones that raise their growth rates and concentrate in the animal's flesh. So every burger you bite into has the concentrated pesticides and herbicides and hormones and antibiotics that animal is fed. This is what floods through the cells with every flesh-based meal. And these are all in the bloodstream at the same time. When you eat the burgers and the fries and the Coke, you create a malignant synergy. Here's a classic meal, the burgers and fries, etc. The fries are full of the fryer oil, teeming with free radicals. The meat generates uric acid. The high fructose corn syrup in the dessert, the phosphoric acid in the cola drinks, all these damage the inner lining of the artery walls, making it more permeable to the oxidized cholesterol, which you create by grilling the burger. You oxidize cholesterol. So that act makes the atherogenic particles that then interact with the damaged gut or artery lining from the rest of the constituent. So you get this malignant synergy that makes the atherogenic particles more problematic. Here, the yellow dots are the oxidized cholesterol that now can penetrate the now damaged endothelial lining that then go to the plaque formation that creates atherosclerosis. Here's another malignant synergy. The endotoxin that I mentioned, you don't want that in your bloodstream. But guess what allows for better absorption is saturated fat. Well, where's the endotoxin? It's in the middle of the burger that's so juicy because of the saturated fat. So the saturated fat increases the absorption of the endotoxin, so you get this malignant synergy. It's a nasty diet that's at the root of so many of our problems, because if you eat 3 meals a day over the course of a year, it's over 1,000 times a year you send the red tide through your tissues. And so I tell the clinicians, when they open the door in their exam room of their clinic, and there's the man with the chest pain from his angina, the lady with the asthma inhaling her albuterol, the man with the type 2 diabetes and injecting insulin, the woman with the acne grieving over her skin. This is not etiology unknown. Of course, we haven't learned everything about these diseases we can and have yet to be discovered. But to say that we do not know the cause of these diseases when there's overwhelming evidence that it's the food effects of the red tide over time that create these health effects. And that's why I get concerned about the paleo folks who get initial improvements often because they stop eating the dairy and the oil and the flour products that the cavemen never ate. And so I agree with that. So they lose weight and their lipids improve a bit. But in my book, to be packing your intestines full of meat 3 times a day is a recipe for colon cancer from all the carcinogens they're going to smear on the gut wall. All the TMAO that they're ingesting is going to give them heart attacks and strokes. All the endotoxin from the meat is going to give them leaky gut that will give them lupus and autoimmune diseases. All the fat is going to clog up their insulin receptors, rampant type 2 diabetes. The bacteria the meat will spawn will inflame the gut wall. They're going to get colitis and Crohn's disease. And I showed you what happens to the brain arteries with all the AGEs from the meat. This is a diet of death. I don't care how good that steak tastes in their mouth or what fantasies they want to tell themselves about what the cavemen ate. But the truth is our Paleolithic ancestors dug up roots and tubers, and the starches provided most of the calories, not mammoth meat for sure. Most hunts were unsuccessful. So there comes that day when the person gets out of the shower and gets a look at themselves in the mirror and says, well, I don't like what I see. I don't like my pot belly. I don't like my sore joints. I don't like all the pills in my medicine cabinet. Tell me, doc, what do I need to do to get my health back? And the doctor who has been trained in lifestyle medicine says there's a lot of things you can do, but the most important thing is start on a diet of whole plant foods. Stop the meat and the dairy and the oils and the sugars and the processed foods. Get a whole plant food stream going through your tissues. And the good changes will begin to occur fairly rapidly. The question is why, the question is how. So let me give you folks some answers here to make you feel more confident. First of all, here we are back. The person's still eating the standard American diet. And here is the red tide marauders that flood through the tissues with every meal. When the person finally says, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to jump on the plant-based train, boots in, and they do that. The first and most important change that they experience is that the red tide stops. There is respite. Every tissue in your body, every cell in your body has built-in repair mechanisms to repair damaged cell membranes, to repair DNA, to fix themselves. But do you know you have DNA editing enzymes? These are proteins that go up and down your DNA strands, on your chromosomes all day, all night. They're going up and down your DNA strands, looking for damage, looking for mismatched nucleotides. And when they find them, they fix them. They don't ask your permission. They know how to repair your DNA, and they do so. But these miraculous enzymes, which when I read about it in the textbook, I put the book down and applauded. This is such a brilliant mechanism. These repair mechanisms can't do what they need to do if every 4 hours a flood of red tide of oils and oxidized cholesterol and AGEs and vegetable oils and sugars and salts and processing chemicals flood through the tissues. You can't get on with your cell repair. Well, now you can. And within this time of respite and of repair, these molecular marauders are now replaced by an entirely different set of molecules that flood through the tissues, flood through the cells with every salad, every soup, every helping of steamed green and yellow vegetables. Let's take a look at what changes. First of all, it's a high water content diet. All the soups and the salads and the steamed veggies and the fruits are full of water. So that adds more water to the bloodstream, and the water and the blood becomes more watery. It becomes less viscous, it's less thick. So more free-flowing blood floods through the capillary beds, bringing more oxygen and nutrients to all the tissues of the body. And that works with a beautiful positive symmetry because the dark green leafy vegetables are going to increase the production of nitric oxide in the walls of the arteries. And that's going to produce a very subtle dilation of the arteries. Well, that's not only going to lower the blood pressure as the arteries dilate a little bit, but there's a law in physics called Poiseuille's law that says just a little dilation of the arteries means a big increase in blood flow. The blood flow goes up by the fourth power of the increase of the radius. Don't worry about the formula. But a little dilation means a big increase in blood flow. And so the surge of this oxygen and nutrient-rich blood that's now less viscous surges through the tissues in the brain, the heart, the kidneys. The circulatory system gets a real boost. When you pull out the animal fat, you pull out the arachidonic acid, which is the main driver of inflammatory substances, prostaglandins throughout the tissues. And now all the fats are coming from plant oils, many of which are in the omega-3 family, which are anti-inflammatory in nature. So you've changed the entire inflammatory balance in tissues throughout the body from a pro-inflammatory to an anti-inflammatory milieu. All these colorful fruits and vegetables are filled with antioxidant molecules that quench free radicals. That's what ROS stands for. And they're missing an electron. These colorful molecules, phytonutrients, give up their electrons happily, and so the oxidative stress goes down. So all the tissues are now healthier. Change the food going through the gut, you're going to change the microbes that live in that gut. If you're eating meat and dairy, you're fostering the growth of Bacteroides bacteria that are not friendly guys. They cause inflammation in the gut wall, foster cancer growth. Pull the meat and dairy out, and now all the food material coming down is plant fiber, and that fosters the growth of the good guy microbes, the Prevotella, that not only are anti-inflammatory in their byproducts, but they also put out neurotransmitters like norepinephrine and dopamine and serotonin that make people feel better. Often their mood improves, a gift from the microbiome. When you stop eating other animals' cholesterol, your own lipids improve, your LDL usually goes down, going to absorb less endotoxin, of course. Your skin oils smell because of the animal fats that work their way out to the skin oils and oxidize. Many guys notice, hey, my wife says my body odor doesn't smell anymore. Right, because all the fats are coming from plant oils that don't turn into odoriferous molecules. When you stop eating dairy from pregnant cows, levels of estrogen and growth factors normalize. Man boobs often improve there. Breast lumps can get smaller. High protein diets are not friendly to the kidneys. They force the kidney filters to go into a state of hyperfiltration that will damage them when maintained month after month. Well, kidney filter function often improves on a plant-based diet. The asthmatic folks notice their lung secretions are less viscous, they wheeze less. The white blood cell counts go down because the immune system isn't getting stimulated by endotoxin. These are just some of the profound changes in tissues throughout the entire body, arteries, nerves, brain, etc. If someone were to ask me, Dr. Klaper, when one changes from an animal-based diet to a plant-based diet, what changes? In a word, what changes? Going from animal-based to plant-based in the food stream? What changes? Everything changes. It's an entirely different physiology on the cellular level, on the blood flow level, nerve function level, microbiome level, hormone level. It changes everything for the better. And so the simple analogy, if you're eating a standard burgers and fries diet, it's like a polluted river flowing through your tissues. But when you go plant-based, you pull out the red tide, and now all these wonderful nutrients are flooding through the tissue. It's like a cleansing river that flows through your tissues with every meal. Yeah, grant it's a hokey analogy, I guess, but the water in this cleansing river is the water in the fruits and vegetables. And so that's what you want to be eating. Yeah. Like Dr. Furman says, the salad is the main dish. You want a salad every day for sure. And I could spend 3 lectures going through every one of these organ systems, how they all benefit from the change to a plant-based diet. And as I mentioned, when I speak to the medical students and the doctors, I now show them slide after slide of journal references about how all of these killer chronic diseases are improved by a plant-based diet. And I urge you to do your own searches on that. And so when I'm speaking to the medical students, I ask them a provocative question. Knowing how reversible the majority of these killer diseases that you're going to spend, no matter what specialty you go into, you're going to spend the majority of your professional careers treating these 9 diseases, knowing how reversible they are with a healthy plant-based diet and healthy lifestyle practices. You want to heal these patients and get to the core of their chronic disease. You just want to manage their chronic disease. If you want to manage the chronic disease, you're going to leave medicine. It's a dismal way to practice medicine. All your patients are going to get fatter and sicker on the standard diet. You want to aim for disease reversal. There is help available through the Plantation Project and the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, but disease reversing disease should be the goal of both the doctor and the patient. But given the context of this VCOP, I have to also tell the young docs there's bigger issues and the patients involved here than your cholesterol levels, blood sugars, and waistlines. I'm very concerned about my biggest, most important patient. I grew up in the forests of Wisconsin. I am a passionate environmentalist, and I grieve over what is happening to our beloved planet Earth. If she were a medical patient, she is in trouble. She's running a fever. Her temperature is obviously going up. Her digestive powers, her soils that transform nutrients are being poisoned and are going down. Her circulatory systems, her rivers are all clogged up with soils and manure. And her carbon dioxide levels are going up. This patient's in respiratory failure. This patient needs to be in the intensive care unit. Boy, does she need intensive care. And I tell the doctors and the patients, it doesn't matter what your cholesterol level is if we don't have a habitable planet to live on. So let's get things in perspective here. Why is this happening? Dr. Oort yesterday made it very clear. There used to be 6 trillion trees on planet Earth. And in the last 500 years, we, mostly European folks, have cut down half of them. We've cut down 3 trillion trees, us Caucasian folks and our descendants. Why did we cut down half of them? Of course, to grow animals for their flesh. The majority of land that used to be forest is now just open grazing grasslands for animals to graze on. Or we are growing grains to shovel down the gullets of 80 billion cows, chickens, pig, goat, sheep, and other land creatures. Every one of these 80 billion creatures on Earth are breathing out carbon dioxide, emitting methane. They're eating fertilizers, eating grains grown with fertilizers that emit nitrous oxide, all potent greenhouse gases. And we perpetuate the problem by burning these forests to keep the forest from coming back, which they want to do naturally. And I tell my naive friends who I have the patriotic stars and stripes in their eyes, listen, when you drive through Iowa and you see cornfield after cornfield with the Star Spangled Banner playing in your background, I want you to realize that that corn is not going into tortillas and corn chips. That's animal fodder for making cheap cheeseburgers. That's animal flesh. And you drive through Illinois, my home state, or Minnesota, and you see mile after mile of soybeans. Those soybeans aren't going into tofu and tempeh, folks, and soy milk. That's animal fodder. We have traded our forest for animal flesh, and it's been a bad bargain to keep the forest from coming back, which they want to do. The oak trees at the edge of the forest drop their acorns. The forest will come back. But the grazing folks would lose their grasslands, so they keep burning those forests. This is a NASA photograph of forests burning on planet Earth on any given day. And what have we harvested for trading our forests and flesh? Our soils are eroding off corn and soybean fields with every rainstorm. Our rivers are running brown with topsoil and manure and fertilizer. That fertilizer runs out into the ocean, creating dead zones. as the algae bloom and suck oxygen out of the water. The water tables are dropping because we're sucking water out to grow alfalfa in the desert, to feed cattle, to make cheap cheeseburgers. Carbon dioxide levels are rising as the trees are cut and burned. Now, it's animal agriculture driving the majority of these environmental catastrophes. The earth is indeed on fire. What are we doing about it? What intelligent response? This is pretty much sums up what we're doing about it. So what are the answers? Wherein lies hope? Hope, as Francis Moreland Page says, doesn't come from calculating whether good news is winning out over the bad, simply a choice to take action. So what should we do? Educate ourselves, which is what you're doing here today and over this VCOP celebration, transforming ourselves and organizing ourselves. Educate yourself. Please go to the website of Dr. Richard Oppenlander and read his book, Comfortably Unaware, which is right where the meat and dairy industries want us. He's got videos there. Understand that he's saying you can put solar panels on everybody's house. You can give everybody an electric car. Unless we change our diet and go plant-based, none of that's going to make any difference. I urge you to have another read of John Robbins' wonderful book, Diet from America. It changed my life. But if you don't have time to read a thick book, get Glenn Mercer's Food is Climate. It's 60 pages. You could read it in an afternoon. And he makes it very clear we have used meat eating up. And definitely check out Climate Healers. I'll show you that a few more times, but you're here, but you know very well about this organization. One of the best books for starters. For the people who say, well, what do I do? How do I start? Get Rachel Brown's For Fork's Sake. Boy, she will take you by the hand as far as what you need in your kitchen and how to actually make this transition. Jim Hicks. You want to know what to do? Please subscribe to Jim Hicks' 4-Leaf program. And you will get a newsletter that will get you off your backside and into effective action. And please join Climate Healers, support them to get this word out. It's the most important message we will ever transmit to our fellow human beings. The one thing everybody can do, doesn't cost anything to order the bean chili instead of the beef chili, but will make all the difference in the world. And for those of you who are just coming into it, here's the obligatory slide to show why it all works. To feed one person, a standard American diet with meat and dairy and oils and all the stuff that the standard meat and dairy-based diet demands, it takes 2 football fields of land to grow the grain, to grow the alfalfa, to feed the cows, to feed the chickens, etc. To feed one person, 2 football fields of land per year. But if those same 2 football fields were planted in potatoes and corn and fruits and vegetables, you could feed 14 people. It's so much more efficient to grow plants and feed the plants to humans directly than feed them into an animal who will turn most of it into manure or heat or inedible body parts like bones and blood. Is so much more efficient to become plant eaters. And if everyone in the world ate a plant-based diet, it would free up a land area the size of Africa. And the beauty is that what would happen to that land, we would only need 20% to grow all the grains and legumes and fruits and vegetables to feed everybody on Earth. What would happen to the rest of that 80% of that land area around the world? The trees would come back, the forests would rewild the area, and as the trees grow, they take carbon dioxide out of the air and turn it into solid wood. They reverse global warming. And as Dr. Rao has made it clear, this is his slide, that if only half the open land was allowed to rewild and turn into trees, they would take 265 gigatons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. That's greater than the 240 gigatons that have been released since the Industrial Revolution. Yeah, I have to shake my head when I see these billions of dollars being spent on carbon capture technology, these big machines to suck carbon out of the air. Mother Nature came up with the best carbon capture device ever. They're called trees. And they turn carbon dioxide into solid wood. Let the trees come back. And as they do, we will find ourselves on planet B as As we go plant-based, we'll need so much less land. The forests will come back. The soils will stabilize and replenish. The rivers will be free of the eroding topsoils and manure. The oceans will begin to heal. The global warming will reverse as the CO2 is taken out of the air. There'll be more than enough grains and legumes to feed everyone. We can stop killing each other over water. Everything heals. And of course, these are the same changes that happen inside our bodies. This is the connection that Dr. Rao asked me to talk about. The very same diet that will free up these human circulation will free up the planet circulation. The very same diet that will make the digestive system in these humans work better will make the soils and the digestive system of the earth work better. It's all the same. It's so beautiful, so apparent. What will it take for these scientists to have the courage to finally advocate this? The message is that the time to stop eating animals has come. We have used animal eating up. I don't care what the paleo folks say about the mighty hunter, it doesn't matter. That era is over. The message is flashing in bright red lights. Human beings, you want to keep living on this planet? As individuals, you want to adopt a plant-based diet to keep those arteries open. And as a species, you want to adopt a plant-based diet to let the earth heal. We can just eat fish. No, we can't. Well, we have used fishing up. We have strip mined the ocean. We've clear cut it with these massive 10-mile wide nets. And for every piece of wild caught fish on your plate, which is reeking of mercury and pesticides and microplastics and dioxins, you know that there's also dozens of whales and sharks and dolphins and turtles that have been drowned in those big nets. We catch and kill 1 to 3 trillion sea animals each year. What right do we have to be doing that? It's time to let the fish off the hook. And I urge you to see this wonderful film called Seaspiracy, as well as Eating for Tomorrow. They will both make it very clear the reality of that piece of salmon on your plate. As Dr. Rao tells us, we need to change from a predator species, Homo sapiens, to a caretaker species. This powerful picture of what will happen to the earth if you just keep the cattle off the hillsides there. So it's about connection. Locally, put on potlucks. Just be an example. Don't have to get into fights. Don't have to say anything. Just do it yourself. Start with there. But regionally, find out where your food comes from. Where's your water come from? Can you get involved in protecting them? And nationally, write your legislators. As Robert Grillo told us yesterday, the Farm Bill is coming up. It's such an important place to write your congressmen, especially if they're on the Ag subcommittee, and say, I strongly urge you to oppose subsidies to animal agriculture industry that damage the environment and to support plant-based industries that heal the environment, and name the bill by number there. And if you can check in with Robert Grillo at freefromharm.org. Well, what about the farmers and the ranchers? Are you going to throw them off the land? They're the enemies. No, they're not. They're our brothers and sisters that are growing our food. They're not the enemies. There are people that are feeding us. Help them. Don't grind them up in the economics. Lift them up. And all it takes is money here. Let's build one less aircraft carrier and take that $40 billion and set up an agency to help these folks transition to grow crops that don't damage the land, the plant-based crops. Send them to the local community college, buy their crops for them, buy their seeds for them, give them their crop insurance for 10 years, send their kids to college, pay the mortgage in their house for 10 years, put internet in their house, help them. Just money, or just buy them out. My granddaddy been running cattle on this land for 100. Fine, that era is over. Buy them out for $1 million, and you let that land heal itself. There's a wonderful organization called the Agricultural Fairness Alliance. It's working in Washington to help create these very changes. But help these people. They're not the enemy. But socially, meat eating needs to become as uncool as wearing fur and smoking cigarettes. I asked the med students, if someone pulled out a pack of Marlboros and lit up, what would you say to them? Are you still doing that, man? Are you still Don't you know what that does to your body? Well, when someone orders a beef burger, it should get the similar response. Are you still eating that stuff? We need some magic. We've seen magic before. When I grew up in the 60s, the Berlin Wall was the biggest, scariest symbol of Soviet power and all the tanks and machine guns. That'll be there forever, we thought. Well, 25 years of Western trade and blue jeans and Beatle music, and one weekend in 1989, that wall came down. That's what can happen when suddenly humans realize that there's more uniting us than separating us. We talk about magic. We also saw Nelson Mandela walk out of Robin prison and become the president of his country. Young people on the internet, man, there's magic right there. Here's Lila Copeland, a vegan, and the LA Unified School District noticed there was nothing vegan on the cafeteria line. So she asked me and a bunch of other doctors and Pamela Anderson to testify at the LA School Board. And we got vegan meals in the LA schools. After a few years, they started backtracking. So Muriel Williamson held their feet to the fire, and she's got vegan food happening again, the LA USD, Unified School District. Ask and you shall receive, man. We got to make it happen. It's not too late. It's not too difficult. Changing our food choices is the one thing we can do now. It doesn't cost anything to order the bean chili instead of the beef chili. I mean, think of all the things we used to think were going to be here forever, and now, poof, they disappeared because better ideas came along. This is a typewriter for people who don't know what they're looking at there. Things that don't serve us need to exit stage left. Think of the practice. We used to harpoon whales in the head. We used to buy and sell black people. Things that make us say, my God, I can't believe we ever even thought of that. Well, slaughtering 150,000 living animals every minute to eat their flesh should be one of those ideas that make us say, I can't believe that we did that. There's got to be something better to put in this man's sandwich than the flesh of these poor animals that are causing their astronomical suffering and killing the planet. You can make a difference when you're pushing that cart down the supermarket aisle or ordering that food in the restaurant with the menu in front of you. That's where you have the power. If we stop buying the stuff, they will stop making the stuff. The money talks. Every time you're in the restaurant and you say, I'll have the beef, I'll have the chicken, I'll have the veal, every time you say those words, your children's and grandchildren's world gets a little hotter, a little drier, a little deader. It makes such a difference. And we need to get this red flesh out of our lives. And there is resistance. Do not underestimate it. I'm going to play for you a quote. I hope you can hear the sound. And the very first words out of this man's mouth are Kamala Harris, the presumptive Democratic candidate for president, because he mumbles it at the very beginning. But listen to what this man is saying about what he says Kamala Harris is advocating. Whoops, sorry. No, am I not going to be able to play it here? Do I have a play here? Nope. Too bad. This is a quote of Mr. Trump saying, and Kamala Harris wants to pass a law to ban red meat for climate change. You're going to take your red meat away. And you hear the crowd rumble and boo, and this primordial chord of resistance slithers in the cave there, and know that he's playing that card that Kamala Harris wants to take your red meat away for climate change.
Wants to pass laws to stop climate change, and she's, you know, that means no more cows. You know, this is serious. This means no more cows. I guess eventually she's going to mean no more people, right? No more people.
Okay, so here you heard him say it again. Not true, but know that there's that kind of resistance on that level to keep red meat in the market. That's the one thing we do have to get rid of. It's not up to Kamala Harris to outlaw it. It's up to us to stop buying it and stop eating it and making it as uncool as wearing fur or smoking cigarettes. And so when you hear the folks trying to perpetuate red meat eating, the paleo folks, everybody should be eating paleo. Really? Are you talking about a flesh-based meal for 8 billion people 3 times a day? What are you talking about? It's going to destroy this planet, it's going to destroy these children's futures, and they deserve a better future than that. And when people would talk to me about their cholesterol levels, I give them all the attention they need, but it's not just about us. It's about these kids and the world we are leaving them. So hope, it's a matter of simply taking the choice to take action. In chemistry, they talk about the energy of activation. In order to get the stored energy out of this dynamite stick, you got to put in some energy. You have to light the fuse. It's called the energy of activation. Get the campfire going, you got to put in the energy of activation from the lighter there. This is what's required, and each one of us and this conference can put in the energy of activation to get that flame of knowledge and change burning brightly. So what can you do? Do what you can where you are with what you have. And that's what I'm doing through moving medicine forward. I'm going to the medical students, the first, second, third year med students before pharmacosclerosis sets into their brains and they think that medicine and surgery are the only treatment for these diseases, because my noble profession has been a major bottleneck to keep this plant-based transition that must happen from happening. Doctors don't know anything about nutrition. They don't mention it to their patients. They don't understand that it's the key to healing. And so the doctors are like the blind men and the elephant. All the specialists think they're treating these individual diseases, but the truth is they're all treating the same disease. It's largely what their patients are eating. The tragedy is that if they got them on a plant-based diet, most of these diseases would go away. So at Moving Medicine Forward, I've been playing the role of the frontline scout who's been in the trenches for 50 years, reporting back to the young doc reinforcements coming in. It's the food. It's been the food all along. These are reversible diseases, and a plant predominant diet is the key. And if you're interested, go to movingmedforward.org. And that's the real reason why I'm in front of these students by Zoom or in person, to get them to use plant-based nutrition as the key to their medical therapy programs. Yes, definitely to make our patients better and to improve the satisfaction of the doctors to seeing their patients get healthy. But I'm really in front of the audience to get the doctors advocating plant-based nutrition because of the children and because of I'm working for the animals and the planet and the children. That's really why I'm up in front of those medical students. And we're trying to get that plant-based message into them before they get seduced into drugs and surgery, which have their role, but plant-based nutrition needs to be the key. And I've put a model in their head that we need to welcome the dietitian onto the primary care team, and she or he needs to follow the patient along and make sure they maintain a whole food plant-based diet. And I've recently joined a clinic in Victoria, British Columbia, where that's exactly what they do. Everyone who is seen in the clinic is referred in by their GP. They see the Aroga physician. Aroga is the name of the clinic, means spotless health in Sanskrit. And after they meet with the doctor, the next stop is at the plant-based dietitian, where they're given a plant-based diet and follow-up instructions and cooking lessons to help them maintain it. And I'm going to bring that experience back to the States and embarrass the American College of Cardiology and the American Medical Association and say, this is what happens when you get a plant-based dietitian on your primary treatment team. People get healthier. So we're at the end here, and that old issue, what's in your wallet? What's on your plate? Okay. Just all of our futures is on your plate and everyone's plate. And be an example Get that word out, learn the reality, write your congressman. Let's get this plant-based revolution happening around the world. All our lives depend upon it. So do what you can, where you are, with what you have. Go plant-based. And again, stay connected with movingmedforward.org and climatehealers.org. Thank you for your attention. I know it's a lot of stuff, but might even have a few minutes for questions. So with that, I will turn it back to Dr. Rao and field some questions if you have it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Klaper. There are a couple of questions on the chat. One question is, can you address the argument about soy? Is it bad for the hormones?
Answer: no, it's not bad for the hormones. And again, this is this is propaganda from the meat industry. We watched it happen in the late 90s after Diet for New America came out and meat consumption came down. The meat industry unleashed this anti-soy tsunami. It's like putting your baby on birth controls if you use soy formula. It's like giving your kids birth control pills if they're boys and girls. Nonsense. Not only does the soy not increase the risk of breast cancer, etc., but a woman with a breast cancer who consumes soy products will have a slower growth of breast cancer. And the people who use soy on a regular basis have a lower risk of breast cancer because it turns out that the meat industry didn't bother checking. There's two receptors on the breast cancer cells. One will stimulate breast cancer growth, which is what real animal estrogens do from dairy products, etc. But with the receptor that the soy products plug into actually retards breast cancer growth. It's actually an anti-cancer substance. So not only enjoy your soy products, but I urge my women who want to prevent breast cancer or have it, absolutely include tempeh, tofu, edamame into your diet on a pretty daily basis. Soy, big thumbs up.
Wonderful. Another question is, what percentage do you estimate of medical schools are still not training their future doctors in nutrition? Especially,
it's still dismal. I'd say 75%, 25% of schools have any. They even mentioned the N word as far as nutrition. We just blow right past it. The patients die. That's cultural. Don't talk about it. It doesn't matter. Yes, doctor. That's why they're sitting in front of you, overweight, diabetic, hypertensive, clogged up, and inflamed. You bet it matters. So that's why we're doing this. We're going right to the students, and it's going to be a bottom-up revolution. We want to plant as many seeds like Johnny Appleseed into the heads and hearts of these young docs. So when they get out to practice, I know how to get these people leaner and healthier. Let's get them on a plant-based diet and find someone to give these cooking lessons. It's doable. But yes, we're trying to reach the students directly through Moving Medicine Forward.
Yeah. There are a couple more questions in the chat, but I'm going to ask Hariharan if he wants to ask his question directly. And Hariharan, make it succinct because we are running out of time.
Okay. Do you ever think the carbon tax regime will come to pass, and is it a sensible legislation to pass?
Oh, carbon tax.
Carbon tax
regime.
Of course, we need that. It's not all that's required. What we need to do is stop the agricultural subsidies, as was mentioned yesterday. Stop giving billions of dollars to the meat and dairy folks, and give that to the broccoli farmers and the fruit growers. And the bean counters have to change the way the beans are flowing there. So yes, the carbon help, but that focuses on the fossil fuels, which is only that much of the problem. So much of the fossil fuels were being burned to grow meat and dairy products, and that's never factored in. We got to change our diet on a societal levels. The carbon would take care of itself at that point, I would think.
Right.
Yeah.
There's an anonymous question in the chat. How do I deal with periods of excessive hair loss? I read it's called telogen effluvium or something like that.
Yes, telogen effluvium. There's a number of reasons. It's a complex medical issue that you really should talk to your doctor about. If you ran a fever, had an infection several months before, it shocks the hair follicles, and the hair loss happens a couple months down the line. So it might be a leftover from some event that happened, even an emotional shock a few months ago might result in it. But iron deficiency, thyroid deficiency, there's a number of medical issues that could drive that. So talk to your doctor about it, have the blood test done for iron and thyroid and all that stuff. But that may also, as I said, be leftover from some hormonal shock that you had a couple months ago. Talk to your doctor about that.
Okay.
Julian,
go ahead.
Thanks so much, Doctor. Yeah, I think you might have gotten some of your statistics from the animal agriculture industry itself, Mr. Klaper, because was when I have a much more powerful way when I present to kids or schools, is it explaining that that it takes like you're saying 2 football fields or at least an acre and a half to just grow the crop for the animal. But if you just use a small 20 square feet or something, I don't know its exact number, but if you just grow crops to feed the people, then they could have over 74,000 meals a year. And sometimes it takes more, or they let the animal live a couple of years, and that's using and then it's maybe 148,000 meals or more if you're growing most potatoes and crops that are green leafy vegetables that have 5 or 6 crops a year. Did you I just wonder.
Lovely. Great. Thank you. That's a good one.
Paige?
Yeah. Unmute yourself.
I'm trying. I think I did it.
Yes.
Okay.
Here's my question. So all of this was very informative. And yet, where do I send somebody who is a baby? This is brand new information. Where would you recommend, Dr. Klaper, for them to find, the ABCs of information so that they can, really get the education go? I'm passionate about sharing, but some people want facts and they want the info, but they don't necessarily want the density. So what are your thoughts? Thank you.
Get Glenn Mercer's little book called Food is Climate, and get Rachel Brown's For Fork's Sake. And they'll get great advice on how to do it and why to do it. That's all they need to do.
So much. All right.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Shankar?
Yes. Hello, Dr. Klaper.
Hi.
The question is again about the processed food. I hear from my other friends and social circle, like they're saying, the moment I say vegan food, I meant boiled corns or something, grains, but they're always equated to a processed food. So still the stress is on the whole food, plant-based diet. But how do we say stay away from the processed food, or how to distinguish for a person who is not hearing for first time?
The processed food, less is more. It's welcome to the 21st century. It's hard to avoid this stuff. Go as vegan as you can. The occasional Impossible Burger is not going to hurt anybody. And if it helps Joe meat and potatoes guy transition to plant-based foods, everybody says, wow, I could eat that. Well, I think it's done a major benefit for that man. So these processed foods, they're transition foods, and you want to eat them occasionally for a few months while you're making that transition. That's fine. They have a role. But again, if you're a single bachelor at home and that's all you're eating is Amy's frozen dinners and veggie burgers, that's not going to be real healthy for you. So less is more, none is best, but do the best you can.
Thank you.
And any vegan processed food is better than any animal food.
There you go. Thank you. Willow is asking a question in the chat. Is the EPA or someone else really considering adding some substance to the water given to cows to reduce methane in the atmosphere?
They're trying to do everything they can do to except deal with the cow in the room. The cows have to disappear when there's too freaking many of them, and we got to stop eating them. They'll do anything they can do to. It's a bad joke. It's like Larry David is writing the script for what these people do. trying to do to reduce the methane. Get rid of the freaking cows. They've outlived their usefulness. Stop
Right.
breeding for them.
Then what's your opinion on regenerative organic farming?
It's great. It's anything that helps rebuild the soils is wonderful. But if it becomes an excuse to run cattle on the land,
Right.
so they're saying that their manure is good for it, then it's more destructive than it's just a rationale to keep the same old thing going there. If it's veganic, if it's truly the plant material plowed back into the soils, I'm all for that. But keep the animals out. They do more harm than good. They breathe the carbon dioxide out. All the things that plants don't do. So not a big fan of animals if they're in the regenerative world there.
Right. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for staying over and answering all the questions.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing this great service. What an honor. And keep getting the word out. Go vegan.
Yes. Thank you.